Emal, let me start with you. You are recently back. Is Karzai's election inevitable?
I don't think so. He can be one of the candidates that wins most votes, but according to the Afghan constitution, winner is the person who wins 50+1 vote. So I don't think he can win 50% vote this time around. Most of the people inside Afghanistan are thinking that the election will go to the second round. According to the Afghan constitution, within 2 weeks, second round of election should happen. But this time around, even that is a bit difficult because the next day after the election, Ramadan or the fasting month starts in Afghanistan. So it will be very difficult to arrange second round of election then. So perhaps there will be some more delays.
Nick, from your traveling around, and on the premise that all politics is local, or are local, what have you heard from the people? Is the anger so deep that their roads are not paved and the schools are not built, that will be the deciding factor, or is it the Taliban in fear that's going to decide this, perhaps?
Well, I think people have been moaning about Karzai for as long as he's been in power, but who are the alternatives, really? I don't know whether the challenges are going to be strong enough and popular enough across the board and across all the different ethnic groups to take on Karzai. And he's got the advantage of incumbency, of course. All the police chiefs and governors back him, and politics in Afghanistan is to some extent about tribal votes and groups voting, and, you know, as you say, it's local. If people think they're going to get a new road, and those are the sorts of factors that people vote on, it seems that there might be a bit more of a challenge than people thought. And he is unpopular. I mean, people they grumble and grumble about Karzai, but at the end of the grumbling, they'll tell you that, well, they're still going to vote for him. The Taliban factor will be a very interesting one to watch. There are fears that, or there were fears that this election couldn't happen because perhaps the Taliban would wreck it. That was the same thing in 2004, though, and that election went very smoothly.
And I was reading something you wrote, actually I think it was from last year, but about the role of NATO, that the U.S. Has the right to ask NATO to do more, and this is actually a little broader than the election itself. But what is the role of NATO now? I mean, the U.S., the U.K. are bearing the brunt of the casualties. U.K. public opinion is starting to wane a bit. Where is the military in this, and what role are they going to play on the 20th?
Interesting. I mean, a lot of what I've been doing in the run-up to these elections is talking to the American and British and Danes and so on, but they're the linchpins of NATO, if you like. And they're not sure. I mean, the Americans clearly are taking the brunt of it and are going to take more of the burden in the future. The debate within America doesn't seem to me where it is in Britain at the moment. But in Britain you have this very acute questioning of what are we doing there. We had Bill Rammell, the Armed Forces Minister, just on Monday, defining the mission down about as tightly as it's ever been defined down. Say, we're there to defeat al-Qaeda and prevent al-Qaeda terrorism on British soil, that's it. And then you've got a debate about, well, what constitutes success in these elections. And it's very hard to get any official or minister to say at the moment what actually is going to amount to success. How do you define it? How many stolen votes is acceptable? How much fraud is acceptable? How many deaths are acceptable before you have to say this didn't go too well? The Americans have taken a simpler line, it seems to me. Even though the Obama administration is very deliberately thoughtful about it, they have thrown themselves behind Karzai. Not so much that they couldn't change if someone else does turn out to win. I think in a way the role is going to be defined when we get the other side of the elections. People will then see what we've got.
Is it that politics in Afghanistan has become more sophisticated, or are they more cynical in the Western sense of political cynicism?
Well, I think they're certainly cynical, more cynical than they used to be. In 2004, as I say, there was terrific optimism about the future and about what they thought democracy was going to do for Afghanistan. I think, you know, I fear most of that has gone now. Although I think people still believe in democracy and the idea of democracy there. I mean, I think part of what made 2004 so optimistic was there was a sense of getting rid of the warlords and the past and the fighting and this terrible, bloody, chaotic past that Afghanistan had. Perhaps this coming election is going to be another step towards a better form of representative government in the future. I think it's proving more difficult than Afghans had hoped.
Everything went wrong according to Afghans. When you speak to the Afghans, security is much worse than before. I mean, in 2004, you could have even traveled to Kandahar and Herat and God knows to areas that nobody could even think of it now. Forget about Kandahar, which is some 5 or 6 or 8 hour drive from Kabul, but now you can't go to Paghman, which is a district of Kabul, and which is 15-minute drive. So things are that bad now in that sense. I would say about the campaign also, for Afghans, the issue of roads and hospitals and so on and so forth is not an issue. And probably people will be surprised here to hear that. Among 41 candidates, only one guy, who is Dr. Ashraf Ghani Ahmadzai, who came out and said that he will be creating 1 million jobs. And nobody even clapped on that, well done, you're doing something differently. Or nobody's talking about jobs, nobody's talking about reconstruction. The main issue in Afghanistan for voters and for the candidates is how to bring peace and how to talk with the Taliban. And I believe this is the difference between 2004 and now. In 2004, as Nick said, that most of the people were thinking that there are warlords alongside Karzai and that government and that cabinet. With voting Karzai, probably the next cabinet will be a different cabinet, because Karzai was saying that this cabinet was imposed on him by Bonn Conference, and it's nothing to do with him. But the next cabinet will be the proper people that he wants, and people voted for that.